think the thing that's most interesting right now surrounding the Jets is what's happening with pass rusher Hassan Reddick, who the Jets traded for earlier this offseason from the Philadelphia Eagles. The Jets let their young pass rusher Bryce Huff, who, when he plays, is absolutely ridiculously awesome. He walks and signs with the Eagles as a free agent. The Jets then trade a draft pick, which could be a 2 based on his playing time, to the Eagles for Hassan Reddick. And no one knows if, the Jets screwed this up, if Reddick changed his mind. But Reddick is traded to the Jets, and now he wants a new contract. The Jets haven't given one to him yet. And Reddick is now holding out of training camp until he gets a new deal, which is problematic, given that the Jets need a second edge rusher opposite Jermaine Johnson. It's a Super Bowl or bust year for the Jets. They got to get Hassan Reddick under contract. Jets win total here, Pat, 9.5. Rodgers 20-1 to win, most valuable player, plus 190 to win the AFC East. So lay it out for us here, where you're at betting-wise here on the 2024 New York Jets.
I think that over-under win total at 9.5 is very, very sharp, Nick. And you and I were talking on the phone earlier this morning. There was win totals that obviously proved to be 3, 4, sometimes even 5 games off by the big sharps, the big Vegas smarties. But then there's a lot of win totals that end up being right on the button. And the Jets at 9.5, I think, is a very, very sharp number, considering even though there is a lot of hype around them, the expectations, you got a 40-year-old quarterback coming off a torn Achilles, right? No, but not everybody's Tom Brady, who can play until he's 45 or 67, probably if he wanted to. Most quarterbacks, there is an age expiration date. And for Aaron Rodgers, his last season with the Packers wasn't very good. Wasn't very good at all, right? So it was very average, and they missed the playoffs in the final week of the season. Then he tears his Achilles at age 39. Now he's 40 years old, coming off a torn Achilles. Let's realize that Aaron Rodgers is not going to be the back-to-back MVP winner that he was in 21 and 22, and he's probably not going to be the Aaron Rodgers that was, even close to his prime at age 30 when he was winning a Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers is going to be a 40-year-old coming off a torn Achilles. Now, he's Aaron Rodgers. He's a 4-time MVP, so he probably will be better than most quarterbacks at age 40 coming off a torn Achilles. But let me say it again at the expense of sounding like a broken record. He's a 40-year-old quarterback coming off a torn Achilles. So let's pump the brakes in terms of how great we think the Jets are going to be. The defense, full of all pros, right? At even every position, whether or not they even get a deal done with Hassan Reddick, they've got all-pro Quinnen Williams. They've got a linebacking crew that is full of studs, including C.J. Mosley.
Well, they need Reddick. They need
Hassan Reddick. And Nick, Joe Douglas has made some questionable decisions before. I don't know, drafting Zach Wilson at number 2 overall and trying to give him every opportunity to be the quarterback. But for the most part, Joe Douglas has been a very good GM with the New York Jets. So I don't think, and Hassan Reddick sure could have changed his mind, but I don't think that Joe Douglas traded for him, sending away a conditional 3rd, which you said could be a 2nd, without the knowledge and without the basis that he's going to have to then sign Hassan Reddick to a long-term contract extension.
Why doesn't he have it signed? Why doesn't he have him signed yet?
Yeah, well, I think he wants probably more money than the Jets have been willing to give him, or the first contract.
So I'm just, and this is kind of immaterial to the betting stuff, because I think both of us think Reddick will eventually be under contract. You mean this sincerely? You don't think Joe Douglas screwed this up at all? At all?
No, I don't. I think, like you said, he's going to sign a contract.
You're giving him the big-time benefit of the doubt here, because it looks like he absolutely screwed this up.
I'm giving Joe D the benefit of the doubt. Now, look, Bryce Huff left. I'm sure the Jets probably offered him a contract extension, but Howie Roseman, he took Saquon Barkley from the New York Giants, decided, hey, I want to, maybe overpay for Bryce Huff. I know the numbers were great last year, 10 sacks, but his first 3 years as a pro, he didn't have more than 3.5 sacks in any season. So when he's on the field, he makes a big impact, sure. And any Jets fan, anybody that has watched the Jets front 7 closely will tell you that. But Hassan Reddick's better than Bryce Huff. He has been in his career. You can try to project Bryce Huff and say, I think so.
But is he?
I think you can try to project Bryce Huff and say he's going to get 14 sacks. He's going to get 15 sacks this year. He's going to be a stud, because we think that from last year. But Hassan Reddick over the last 3 years, or I think it's the last 2 years, only 3 guys have more sacks than him. And that would be one of those would be Myles
What about
Garrett.
his first 3 years? What about Reddick's first 3 years, though? He had 7 sacks in his first 3 seasons. So kind of like a similar career analog to Huff. I'm not saying that you could be right and maybe Reddick's better than Huff. I just think, I personally think that Douglas screwed this up. Just with the whole thing. I would rather have had Huff than Hassan Reddick, but you could be right. Reddick could end up being a stud for the Jets this year, to be fair.
Sure, and I would probably rather have Bryce Huff as well because you would have paid him. He's getting $17 million from the Eagles, and Hassan Reddick right now is getting 15, and he wants more than that. Now he deserves more than that. Like Hassan Reddick's not being nuts in terms of the demands he wants. He's the 20th highest paid pass rusher right now. When in fact he's played like a top 5 pass rush, or arguably absolutely top 10 over the last couple of seasons. So he wants somewhere around $25 million a year, something that would get him paid as a top 5 pass rusher. I think he deserves it. And I think for the Jets this year, you traded for him. You knew that he was in a contract dispute with the Eagles, that he's going into the final year of his contract. You knew he wanted more money. You knew he wanted a fresh contract. So, yes, I think that Joe Douglas knew that. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I think they get a contract done. And ultimately, I think Hassan Reddick is going to be a lot of incentives cooked into this contract, however long they extend him to. I agree. I don't think we're talking about Jets-Niners week 1 and Hassan Reddick is continuing this holdout like he's Le'Veon Bell, or Joe Douglas, cuts bait and says, you know what, we're going to trade him and maybe only get a 5th or a 6th round pick back. I don't think it's going to end that disastrously for the Jets. But and then again, somebody I didn't mention, they have Sauce Gardner. So the defense is great. Robert Saleh is a defensive guy. But my issues, Nick, like they have with the last several years with the New York Jets, lie within the offense. It lies within the leadership and accountability department with this in this offense, because their offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, if you even want to call him that, right, who Aaron Rodgers brought over, one of his many buddies.
But does he matter? And I'm being serious, does Nate Hackett matter?
He should.
If Aaron Rodgers is healthy.
He should. He's the one calling the plays, right? I mean,
is he though? I'm being serious. Like, who is actually in charge? Come on, who is in charge of this offense? Rodgers or Hackett?
Probably Rodgers, but for the most part, those play calls coming from the sideline are coming in from Nate Hackett. And if Rodgers wants to audible every single play like he's Peyton Manning, I'm sure he has the power to do so.
I mean, he's done that. He did it in Green Bay. I think that's probably going to have, I think Hackett sucks also. He's horrendous. I agree. But he's not in charge of this offense. This is Aaron Rodgers' show. We're now sitting at San Francisco -5.5 everywhere, including BetMGM. Total 46.5. Any thoughts for you, Pat? Do you think you'll have a bet on this game as of right now? Obviously, things can change in between now and week number 1.
Yeah, almost certainly. I'm a full lockstep agreement with you in terms of the 5.5, the 6 that popped to open here. I do think it's too high. And if the Jets showed you last year that they could beat the Buffalo Bills in week 1, when Aaron Rodgers goes down 4 plays into the season, again, we both don't trust Robert Saleh as the head coach, but it does feel like week 1 for the Jets would be a spot to maybe pick them in on the road in San Francisco. I know that's scary, but for me, I'm kind of more confident that the under would hit, the under 45. I mean, again, 2 top 5 defenses. You've got, again, it feels like this game is low 20s in terms of who's going to win it, simply because of the defense, simply because it feels like now more than ever, the NFL, the first 3 weeks of the season is just extended training camp, right? Extended preseason, I should say, because none of these guys play in the preseason anymore. So offense is not usually in full flow and in full rhythm until a couple of weeks into the season. So you've got, again, 2 definitive top 5 defenses in football. How many games did we see last year in the high 30s? I know these offenses are expected to be much, much better than some of the offenses that rolled out at over-unders of 38.5, 39.5. Any game involving the Pittsburgh Steelers, any game involving the Denver Broncos towards the end of the season when their defense actually was somewhat respectable. But 45 for these 2 teams, week 1, primetime, Monday Night Football, where primetime games usually go under, that is almost a certain play for me, is taking the under. Hopefully it climbs up a point, if not a half a point.
And I was just looking at my local just to see kind of what the total was there. It's actually 44.5 there. So maybe we're heading down towards 44, one of the key numbers when it comes to totals in the NFL. I actually think I'd bet the over if we hit 44, but we have a lot of time to get there before we get to week 1. I'll give you the bull case for the New York Jets now. I don't think you agree with this, but I don't think there's any question about it. The Jets' ultimate upside this year, their ultimate upside, I'm not picking them to do this. I will not pick them to win the Super Bowl. Their ultimate upside, though, is to win the Super Bowl. How many teams can you actually say today, as the vast majority of the NFL's reporting to training camp, how many teams can actually say we can go out and raise a Lombardi trophy this year? Like, the Jets are absolutely one of those teams. And you look at the things that are most important to a team. Quarterback, Jets have it. Even if he's obviously on the downslope of his career in terms of his age, if he's not what he was in his 2-time MVP season, like, it's still Aaron Rodgers. Still Aaron Rodgers. Still weapons in the pass game. I think they'll trade for Devontae Adams midseason. But even before that, you love Garrett Wilson, right? We like Mike Williams as a number 2. I love Malachi Corley. I'm drafting Malachi Corley everywhere in best ball. Their third-round rookie receiver from Kentucky. Love Malachi Corley. This offensive line has the opportunity to be very good. Very good this season. You get like 12 games of Tyron Smith. This offensive line's going to be good. Vera Tucker's got to stay healthy. Fashanu, I like as a swing tackle, the rookie first-round pick. And then you talked about how good the defense is. Man, I'm with you. I think Robert Saleh's terrible. He might be 32 out of 32 as far as head coaches go in the NFL. He sucks. Nate Hackett, I called him Coach Hack when he was the head coach of the Denver Broncos. Leave the ed off because the guy's a hack. He's atrocious. I agree with you there. And I think if there's going to be a drawback, Pat, something that ruins the Jets season, I think it's going to be Saleh. I don't think Hackett has anything to do with it unless Rodgers gets hurt and then it's a disaster. But Saleh could ultimately be what holds this team back. But I do think, and look, this is the beauty of this, right? We'll play the games and we'll see who's right. I do think you're underrating the Jets' ultimate prospects this year. I think you are kind of underselling a little bit what their upside is this season.
Okay, and that's fair. And I can see a Jets team in 2023 that had a collection of Zach Wilson and my cousin Timmy Boyle, not actually cousin, but cousin Tim for show purposes.
And
Tim
you are
Boyle.
Much more talented than him, by the way. Like, there's no question.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's
When
again,
you mentioned,
local.
and I'll steal a line that you used earlier this segment. Not a high bar to clear, but you did clear it better than Tim Boyle.
Yeah, so Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, years past, whoever they've had under center, I agree that Aaron Rodgers is a significant upgrade to any of those guys. So you can see Jets win 7 games with those stiffs under center last year. How do they not win at least 2 or 3 or even 4 more with Aaron Rodgers?